Hello guys, this is Abdurrahman Gilal. In our previous presentation, we learned about software process. In today's short presentation, I will be extending a little more information about software processes. Before I go and explain the different types of software process models available for us, but I wanted to just tell you that it's not necessary that we have to have process models to develop software. The process models are basically happening to be everywhere. Any kind of product that you are going to develop, there are certain steps that have used to happen. So for instance, you have always to know what are the requirements that are you going to actually make for anybody. So a product may start or have to be started with set of requirements. And then once you've got the requirements, so it's not necessary that you directly start. So the first thing that is that you analyze it. And then definitely once you analyze it, then you have to see that you've got any available resources to develop them. So, and then you collect the resources and you start developing it. Once you develop it, then you go and see like, am I actually developing the right product that is going to be acceptable or used by the people who are actually asking me to develop. For instance, if you are going to a tailor shop and you're asking them to make your suit for you or shirt for you, so the first thing a tailor will do is that he will see your measurements. So that measurements is called a set of requirements. And then definitely you also can put how to say some specification that you wanted to have your shirt or suit looks like this. So this is once again an extension of the set of requirements. So once you say and you go, then the tailor will sit and see what are the things that are there, and he will try his excellence and knowledge into designing it first. So he will try to make sure that everything fits as per the need of yours. And then he will either start stitching by himself, or he has got some staff available that those staff will be seeing or stitching on it. And then once the things are ready, so this is a possibility that he may see it by himself, or he may ask you to come, and then you can see and have a look on it, and then you can further go on and start using it or something like that. So these steps like requirement and specification, like design and then development and then testing. So these things are going to happen everywhere in any kind of product. So same thing is going to happen in software if we are going to develop. But because software does not happen to come like us as any tangible product, which we see and we touch and we feel. So it's a quite a stuff that we have to understand. And you know that softwares can be very complicated. At the same time, software are very easy to be developed. So it depends like how big is the software and how small the software. So it has to be consider, but the steps will remain the same. But the way we arrange the steps, it has to be something very critical. So there are certain situations if you have a large project, so the best practice is to see everything, and then you collect all kind of requirements, and then you design them, and then you go for the development, and then you go for the validation. But there's issues come that most of the people when they have a large scale project and then they give the requirement and the test at the end of the requirement, so at the end of the development, so if there's any problem that they found in the developed product, will require them to develop something else again, or it has to come further, extension or changes into the code or into the product. So it's going to actually extend the time and budget. So there are a lot of people who are saying do not actually jump into the overall requirement collection and then go for the design and development. Go like chunk by chunk. So you collect the requirements slowly and then you start developing. But every project is not going to happen like that. So this is very important so that we have to know what kind of things available for us. So we have to know that there can be a large scale software, there can be small scale software, there can be medium scale software as well, which does not rely any kind of small or medium category, small or a large category. So we already discussed that software process definition. The software process defines a series of activities performed to construct a software system. So we know that, okay, so now we have, let's say if I just quickly jump into the waterfall, so it tells me that there are steps that are actually, yeah. So like the steps are going from upwards to the downwards. So have you seen the waterfall? I'm sure you have been to the places where you might have seen the waterfalls. So the water flows like this. The rocks are there, and the water goes down and down. And the first thing is that you have to collect the requirements. Once you collect the requirements, then the second thing is to like how that system will be happening. So here you actually involve the customer or clients, anybody that's yours. And then, sorry, yeah, and then maybe you can involve some other stakeholders, such as like who are actually going to be developers. So Somerville has explained it nicely. If you have got the notes of Somerville of software process, it's going to explain you that the what kind of stakeholders should be placed here. So that's not my topic today. That's why I'm not explaining this further. But let's say once you got the requirements, then you have to design them. For instance, and how the suit looks like. So what was the measurement of the person? So how the shirt should be. It should be like this or that. So it depends on how you're actually going to make. Sorry about my drawing. It's very bad, I know. And then definitely, yeah, what's the problem? Yeah. And then once you design, then you go for the development and testing and then integration testing. What I mean by integration testing, there are small parts and these parts can be connected later on. So, when you are developing a big thing, so this was part number one, two, three, four. So you develop this one. So when you develop this one, you test it, is called unit testing. So each of them independently tested is called unit testing. But it's not going to happen that one software will be actually working on one unit. So you have to have, let's say, multiple units. So these multiple units will, speak about this. I think there's something that is dragging it. Okay. So, so once you actually combine these things, so it becomes integration. So you have to perform some integration testing. So I'm going to give you a quick example. Like you are developing a calculator, and then the calculator may have, some numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, blah 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 blah. And then you have addition operation, then you have subtraction operation, then you have multiplication operation, and some other things. So when you have addition done, so this is what I can say. This is the unit testing for addition, the first thing, and then this is unit testing for subtraction, and goes for the same for all the operations there. But then you have to combine them, and then you have to test them together. So this is called integration testing, right? So integration testing has to happen anywhere you are developing any kind of product. It does not mean it only happens here. But the way it happens, the place it happens, this may be different at different types of methodologies, right? So maybe this methodology does not give you, or sorry, this type of model does not give you integration right at the beginning. Definitely it's not. So there you have to remember that different models will give you that type of opportunity at different levels. And the last one is called operation and maintenance. There are a lot of costs that are happening in operation and costing. So that looks like this is a waterfall that we discussed the other day. But let me now go back and tell you the quick problem. So the first problem, if you have ever been to waterfall in any places in United States or your country, anywhere else in the world, so when the water falls, then the water does not go back. What if you found a problem here that some requirements are incomplete? Let's say at this level you identify some requirements are incomplete, or some requirements are not as per standards, or something has happened right here after. So can you go back? And basically if you identify a problem here, that can only go down, and unfortunately you cannot go back. So this is kind of a thing. But there is another advancement in research that's called iterative waterfall model that allows us to go back. So this could be one of the things that every phase has iteration backward. So because I am explaining you at the beginning level, so I'm not telling you anything about iterative waterfall. So just to understand, the waterfall has its flaws, but iterative waterfall revise those flaws, right? Or resolves those flaws. Sorry about my words. And then, unfortunately, like, okay, let's say you got the requirement from the customer, and the customer just is off. So it's on, where are you? Yeah, yep, here. So the customer, let's say you got a customer here, and then customer went off because you already collected the requirement. So this phase happened at this level, or maybe at this operation level, or somewhere middle between here, system testing, you involve the customer. And the customer said, no, 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 I didn't mean about this. I wanted to ask you to develop like this way. So what happens then? So basically you cannot just change here, because everything is just upside down. So I didn't ask you to have the, some requirements can be edited at the moment when something is happening, but there are a lot of other problems. So you have to start from design again, and then you have to start the testing again or development again. So many challenges that you can encounter if you are actually trying to work on waterfall. So waterfall is not bad. Definitely, I'm not going to say it's a bad kind of a practice, but waterfall is good for large scale projects which are mission oriented, which are critical, and waterfall requires you to have specialized people for all kind of steps that you are seeing on the screen. If you are collecting the requirement, you have to have requirement specialists or requirement engineers. And if you're collecting designing, so you have to have design experts. So you have to have a big project, so big team as well. So that's not easy if you have got a small product. So what if you have a small product? You have a product to develop for a shop or for any small business. Like if you are looking for entrepreneur kind of product, you are entrepreneur or some entrepreneur is coming to you and asking you to develop something for them. So are you going to actually apply this type of model? Because that depends that you have to have a big team and entrepreneurs do not know exactly what kind of product they are expecting, but they just have small set of requirements. So that's not suitable at the moment when you have small scale projects and you do not have requirements well clear. If you're clear, then okay. If you're large scale, okay for waterfall. So in this case, what is the best available option for us? See, it's not that you cannot apply waterfall, but that's not gonna give you the benefits that you're looking for. So people prefer to have agile because the from words agile means quick, swift, responsive. So like agile models are excellent in a way that if you have small scale projects where your team is capable of many things doing at once. For instance, you are working as a requirement analyst as well as designer, and I am working in as a designer or a developer as a tester. So even few people can start working. So if you are working on small scale project for entrepreneurs or some other companies, definitely this is going to be the best practice for us. So this does not look the way it looks. It has a water and fall. So most of the people they call it a plan driven approach. It means that everything has to be planned. But when you are entrepreneur or when you're dealing a quick best development, so that's not a plan driven. So it's called agile approach. So agile approach says that our focus is more on flexibility, customer collaboration, and rapid delivery of a working software. So they're like you may have certain other principles to understand software, agile process models. So they only focus that you have to be flexible, which means that you can interact too much with color customers. You can change the needs as per their desires. And whatever you prepare, you just show them. So it's a good thing, right? So if you're making calculator for any company, so make sure that once edition is ready, just release to him. Let him see that if you got anything that you wanted to edit or you wanted me to do in other ways. So basically, you have to see that what's his opinion about that. So the customer works closer with the developers. So this is how it looks like. So agile process actually, promotes adaptive planning, evolutionary development, and early delivery and continuous improvement, and they encourage rapid and flexible response changes. This is how it looks like. So okay, so now if I wanted to see like how it actually helped me to go, so the first thing is that they have some set of requirements, and those should be high level of requirements. It must not be detailed requirements. So when I say high level, which means the concept of requirement or the system or concept of a complete system is unclear. So it's okay to just start with a need, right? The first need that you thought like, okay, I wanted, and then once that need is given to you, then you can ask them, like, for instance, I wanted to ask you to make tea for me, and you made a tea quickly for me, and I drink. I said, okay, can you put sugar for me? And then you put sugar. So this is another iteration. And then you said, oh, can you give me some milk into it? So then another milk. Can I ask you to put more milk into it? So you are changing requirements. I'm a customer, you're a developer, so you are actually helping me to do everything that I'm requesting you. So that you are working close to me and you are side by side with me. So whenever you have a high level requirements, you just start from that. And then you develop first, and then you develop second, and then you actually aid functionalities and test from the feedback and reviews. If it's accepted by the customer, that's good enough, release it. If not, then you can go back, no problem. And So the word iteration says, like I told you the other in other presentation, that if I have a big software and it has six requirements, one, two, oh sorry, four requirements, three and four. So I can make this is my iteration number one, and I can make this is my iteration number two. So what I mean from this, that based on whatever requirements are understandable for us, whatever requirements have been discussed among client or developers, are now segregated between iterations. So you discuss with them. I'll give you first in first go, I will give you addition and subtraction, and the second go, I will give you multiplication and division. So the first iteration goes for that. So basically, when you got some acceptance, so you can release the product so that he start can working on plus and minus. But like if he's having some problems, no problem. In the second edition or second iteration, you still can modify the first iteration loopholes. This is how it looks like. So it is effective when you have kind of a quick involvement of customer and you are flexible as a developer and when the requirements are not clear, right? So let's quickly see, as I told you, that each iteration will have planning, requirement analysis, design, building, and testing. So it is not like going to say that you don't have the other phases such as design. So when I say waterfall, it's good because it starts from up and down. So they are focusing too much of documentation. And agile, they are not too much about documentation, but they are close with customers. So let's say if I'm making a software for military or I'm making a software for nuclear. So these type of software are not like you cannot expect the president to come and meet you every day and explain you what he's expecting you to do, or the chief of army staff. So you actually have a situation where you have to collect his requirements in the one go. So this is good for you to have this kind of thing. But when you have a small person like me who is just making a shop software, so you can meet me frequently, you can give me a call, so that's okay for you. So the iteration can go like this way. All the phases will be here either, it will be two, but does not mean that they have to be in one go. So like in waterfall, I can now see that the testing happens at the end, but here it testing happens at certain places, right? So there is another model that is called spiral model. So spiral model is required based on incremental approach. So what do I mean from incremental approach? So it's the same thing as if I'm saying agile. Agile is also incremental. There are two terms that are always used. One is incremental and iterative. So incremental approach is that you have okay. Iterative is you have four requirements, so you made two iteration of it. So it's called iterative approach. Incremental one, that means two which are ready, just give them and let them use. So, and there's a possibility that you do not have to wait for something else to be ready. So you give them, everything is ready. And after a few months, they say we have four and five as a requirement. So basically they added two more requirements. Give me a second. Let me see if I can draw for you. Okay. So today this my pad is not working effectively, so I have one two, better not one two, I have plus, minus, multiplication and division, right? So this was my iteration number one and this was my iteration number two. So this is iterative approach, which can be in agile, which can be in spiral as well, no problem at all. But there is another one called incremental approach, which means that, okay, you give this as a product to them and to your customers, I mean. And then later they come back and ask you, okay, can I extend certain set of requirement like modulus and or percentage or some other like average stuff in your calculator? Now this is iteration number third, which is not actually exactly iteration number third, but that is an increment of the developed product. So this is called incremental approach, where you have to be ready that this can happen after the product is ready. So agile can also welcome them, or any other kind of even plan driven can also welcome sort of things. So the spiral model, basically, if you see here, is you know excuse me. Okay, so the spiral model. Okay, so the spiral model, my bad. Okay, give me a second. I have to make sure that everything is fine. I have to adjust my pads, or give me a second. I'll be back shortly. Okay. Something is disturbing my pad. So let me close my pad and actually it's good for me. Okay, excellent. So I'm all good. So let's say they start with objective and then they start with identifying and resolving risk. So they decide objectives first and they go for a risk assessment. So anything that you're actually they're giving them requirements, so they analyze the risk. And if there is a risk, they how to mitigate the risk. And then they develop it and then they review or test it and then they go again for the deployment of the second step. So what I mean from this is that if you look this one, okay, so you look this one. Once again, I have to give me a second. Yeah. If you look this one, so the first is that they started with certain requirements and then they analyze it and then the concept. So the first prototype is basically starting here, and then the prototype. What I mean by prototype is not actually a complete product. It has some functionalities missing which are not desired by the users or customers, but they are important to have. So for instance, security of a product has to be very important. So that is not sometimes available in prototypes. So forget about it if the exact the product itself is for security, so we have to make sure. But let's say you're working as addition, subtraction kind of a software. So security or safety or performance, this could be another type of requirement which usually are not discussed orally. But you as a developer have to focus them, right? So prototype does not actually focus those performances, but prototype just wanted to make sure that whether if you're not clear with a set of requirements, so you should be actually having some views. So same thing happens. So you have first set of simulation and then set of requirements and then requirement validation, and then you go further. Then you analyze the risk and develop a third prototype, and then you have model, then you have design and validation, and then integration, as you say, like because you already have some requirements developed. That's why you are working on integration here. And then you go, and the final one is that you go for acceptance testing. So I will explain you what is different type of testing available. But quickly to see that you have a plan, you have a concept. So the first concept has to be prototype number one. And then once you have the concept, then you start simulating it, and then you explore further requirements and then validate the requirements and the plan the development. So when the plan development has happened, then you analyze the risk into it, then the prototype number third is ready now. So you have a model as, and then you go for the product design because plus minus is ready, multiplication is ready. So now you design a validation and verification, for instance, and then you go further, and then that's it. You finish the product. I hope it makes some sense. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit confused. You don't hesitate to just leave me a message. I will try my best to explain you. So as I said, prototype. So now there's another specific type of model that is called prototype model. So prototype modeling is one of the most popular used software development lifecycle. So what I mean from software development lifecycle, it means the software process, the same thing. The software development lifecycle people sometimes use interchangeably. Some people say methodology as well. So forget about it. Just focus the software process. Prototype modeling is one of the very famous one. The model is used when the customers do not know the exact project requirements behind or beforehand. So in this model, a prototype of the end product is firstly developed and tested and refined as per the customer feedback till the final acceptable prototype is achievable, which forms the basis of the development of the final product. So there are a lot of people, they actually apply agile approaches, but they develop prototype. So in order to use agile approaches, you're working on prototyping. So you can combine these two processes. So how it looks like, it's very easy to be explained if you see this one. So as I told you, remember that you have agile. Let me show you once again first. This is agile. You have high level of requirement, and then you have development, and then you have acceptance of the rejection, right? So the same thing happens here now. So let me quickly show you. Okay, you have set of requirement, and then you quick design. Develop the prototype, evaluate the prototype from the customer. If the customer is not satisfied, revise the requirements or refine the requirements, and then again design it and keep moving. So let's say if the customer is accepting the requirement, so your prototype is accepted. Now you can go and develop either a product from zero, or you just evaluate it, or evolutionary, which means you extend it. You are using the same prototype, but you are just extending what are the missing things which were not desired by the customer, but you thought were important as to be developed. Or you start from scratch. So if you start from scratch, so it means throw away. You already throw whatever you develop, but you already clear with the requirements and you start working on new things. So it's a kind of thing that you have a small model, and if the model is useful, then they can start building over the same model. Or if not, then they have to just have this as a model, but they will develop a different product. So there are two types of prototype model or prototype development model. So one is a throwaway, another one is evolutionary, which means extension of the same thing. So you're gonna see that refining the prototype means the first prototype did not have, let's say, performance or security or safety. So now you will refine it, and then you will put those all things, and then you will ask for the verification. This is called final test, and then you will deliver to the users, right? So excellent. And if not, let's say it's not evolutionary, so you're gonna go and discard the first prototype, develop the SRS. So SRS means software requirement specification, because you are doing this all so that you can collect the requirement. Then you design differently, implement, test, and deliver, because you already have got the requirements. So now you just have to get verified if their requirements are now meeting their desires, right? So excellent. So this looks like perfectly fine. Please do not hesitate to ask me the question if you got any. So let me go quickly. As I told you, that incremental model, which means that you are having versions, like as I told you, plus minus multiplication division, and then you have modulus or average. So the first version is plus minus, second version was multiplication and sub division, and the third one was average, and the fourth one was modulus. Let's just make it like that. So this one is good that you have first thing ready, and then you go and you extend what you already have it. So it's called incremental. So incremental, once again, agile can be incremental, or even waterfall can be incremental, but depends. But the size of work will be actually, how to say, extended if we are if we are working on incremental with waterfall. So I'm gonna explain you the last one because there are so many. So I'm just gonna give you a quick ones, though are very famously used. So let's say it's called V model. V model is what is this? This is like it's a extension of traditional waterfall model. So it means that in traditional model, you have requirement and you have design, you have development. Excuse me, and let me. So you have requirement, you have design, you have analysis and design, you have further design, and then you have coding, and then you have testing, right? So this one you see, this comes from here, and let's go back here. So every phase has got a specific kind of validation. This was one of the biggest problems of waterfall, that the testing was happening at the end. So now they are actually keeping two different things: verification and validation at each phase, and each phase will have different type of how to say, testing. So if you have a requirement gathering, so you have to make sure that the users or customers are accepting it. So I would say customer, not users. So my pad is not working, so I'm not gonna write it down. And then once you have a design, so let's say I'm gonna say, like, you have module design, small module like plus. So for the plus, you do the unit testing. For the minus, you do the unit testing. But when all the modules are ready, so this is a bigger design, as I told you, which means this is combining different units. So this is gonna be integration testing. And then once integration is done, so we have also some system analysis and how a system will be looking like. So this is called system testing. So is user accepting the system or rejecting the system? So remember, verification and validation we discussed in other presentations. So verification is a process that basically tells you that whether you are actually having all kind of stuff properly followed. For instance, I was saying plus, minus, multiplication, division. So when you are seeing that, am I developing plus into it? Yes, I'm developing. Am I developing minus into it? Yes, I'm developing minus into the calculator project. But does it work correctly? Does plus work correctly? Does minus work correctly? Does multiplication? So this is what we call validation. So there's this slight difference that comes here is the verification validation. Verification is just to ensure that everything is there, and validation is to ensure that things are actually working well into the product. So you're going to see that unit testing and integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing are the validation part. So one of them could be, so how to say, static validation, and other could be dynamic. So static, which means that you manually try to validate, putting the inputs and everything. And dynamic, which means you use system to make sure that automated, that system is identifying. And we all know that the system has power to do better, testing in than human, right? So it depends. Like AI is helping us in every way. So my last topic for today is to like how to select. This is one of the things that will confuse me, that I've got so many models. So which one I should be selecting? So it depends, okay. So it depends on many factors. Even I cannot just quickly give you the idea about it, but you have to consider factors into them. So what I mean by factors, for instance, like how many people are going to use that software, how many budget is involved in here, how many people are going to develop that software. So there are so many, factors. So I thought to just discuss the factors first, and then you may select based on what you are required to. If you're working in a team on a smaller level, so usually these decisions are made by the company. So the company is a small company, they are most probably go with the waterfall or agile model. If the company is a big company, they are working on complex systems, so they go for the further one. So having given you the list of those factors, like I told you, the size, the nature of the project, such as the maintenance or research or nuclear, something like that, customer requirements and involvement. So let's say if you have so many things that you have to ask from the customer, so what do you think, which product or which model will be good for you? If your answer is agile, excellent. That's the right answer for me, because agile welcomes the customer. Remember the definition. So team's experience and expertise. Some people have to see like, do we have an expert team? So waterfall requires you to have experts team. They cannot let you just have anybody to work with you. So they require you to experts. So if you have expert team, you still can go for waterfall, or you can select later on. And the timeline and deadlines like budget and so many other factors such as risk management. So which is good for risk management? We have quickly seen a spiral is good for risk management, isn't it? So yes, technology tools and techniques, documentation. So if you're going for the documentation, which one is good for you? Yeah, documentation is always excellent in waterfall, which is the plan driven. So I would go with the documentation. Feedback, continuous feedback can be good in how to say V model as well, or prototyping. Program is excellent answer for that actually. So there were so many factors, and I realized that can I explain to you? So I just went to go and find some research article. I'm not gonna say this is my own understanding about this, the one that this research authors have actually produced. I'm just going to explain you that what researchers are thinking to use what type of knowledge in order to select the process model. So I quickly read this article, which is criteria for choosing the right software development process. Sorry, life cycle. Remember the same thing. Method for success of software projects. So okay, so they say like they have like characteristics of requirement, participation of user, or type of project or risk associated. So they have kept four models such as waterfall, verification, validation, spiral, and incremental. And they have say yes, no based on certain questions. So if you are a person uh, you know, which is having a confusion, what should I do? So basically, you may pose these questions first among your team members, and then you can select anything that is suitable for you. So if you have participation of users, so let's say in all phases there are participation of user. If yes, the waterfall is not good, definitely not good. Verification, validation, definitely, because it's an extension of waterfall model. Spiral does not, but incremental, no. So I'm a bit confused when this author is saying incremental is no. I would say yes, because agile is one of the incremental, how to say, processes, or you can, so incremental model itself, as we discuss here. So they can use incremental approach, and yes, an incremental will actually let you do this. So this is his or their findings. So I'm not going to challenge their finding. They are the researchers, they know better. So I'm just going to explain you that how people are posing questions in order to select any kind of process model. So let's say if you have a correct sets of requirements, you're focusing requirement, and then now your requirements are clear or unclear. So you should have these questions, easy to understand and define requirement. Requirements are changed quite often. If requirements are changed quite often, then verification, validation, they say okay, and then incremental is okay, and spiral is also okay. But waterfall is no okay. So that's all. Thank you so much for your concentration, and please do not hesitate to ask me any question if you got any. Thanks so much. Take care, please. Bye bye.